New videos every day.
But a lot of people tend to kind of use the thought process that's involved in logical debate as their primary method of learning or knowing things. And I want to talk about that for a second and how ridiculous it is, you know. A lot of people, you know, they have whatever their worldview is. They think the world is a certain way. And if some information comes at them and it's in agreement with their worldview, then they agree with it. If it's not in agreement with their worldview, they consider that it's wrong, right? That's pretty much kind of the default way that a asleep person sort of thinks. So, I kind of give you an idea why this is bad, right? There are people who will debate the most insane arguments. There's still a flat earth society. There's a society of people out there who think the world is flat, and they have all these arguments why the world is flat, and they can debate it. There are people out there that think that man did not land on the moon, and they have gathered a tremendous amount of evidence to disprove or debunk the idea that man went on the moon. There are people that argue that the earth is actually hollow. You know, from an atheist-theist perspective, there are people who argue there are no God, and they try to come up with all this evidence for it. And then there are people that, you know, argue there is a God, and they try to come up with all this different evidence for it. Well, that's a debate. Man, that debate's been going on since the recorded time, right? And it's never resolved. Nobody's ever resolved the debate. Now, more or less, we've resolved this debate whether or not the world is flat. You know, we've resolved this debate of whether or not ether exists in space. You know, there's a number of, or whether or not the universe revolves around the earth. You know, through actual observation, we have been able to come up with conclusions to things that people debated for years, right? But it took actual observation to do that. And debates that have been ranging for 2,000-3,000 years will continue to be debated and continue to be debated and will never resolve until some type of concrete explanation or some type of concrete observation is had so as to resolve the argument. Now, let's take somebody who's a skeptic for a second. You know, skeptics use this form of evidence, prove or not prove, right? And the problem that I find with skeptics is all too often they really have their mind made up ahead of time. You know, you get these guys that are debunkers, and they go, here's a guy who said there was a UFO sighting or something, right? And the skeptic already knows there's no such thing as a UFO. So then it becomes his job to try to find evidence which shows that this UFO sighting wasn't real, you know? And then they will find something. You know, the creationists, the young earth creationists, they have all kinds of evidence that the world's only, 4,000 or 6,000 years old, or however old that they think it is, right? But, it's a lot like the skeptic. You're going in, you have this predetermined idea, and you're trying to find evidence to prove the idea. And if you've ever taken a debate class, and you've ever had to argue both sides of the topic, you will learn that no matter how ridiculous your argument is, you will be able to come up with arguments to support it, right? So, debate is not about truth, there is more to learning truth than whether or not there's some evidence that supports whatever your current worldview is, right? So, if you see these guys, just don't confuse debate with truth. See debate for what it is. It is an argument. It is a battle of personalities. It is a game in which one opponent is attempting to overtake the other opponent. And they do not particularly stay with any logical grounds. Occasionally a guy will go, oh, you're using logical fallacy number 37.9 and it's circular logic or whatever. Well, you know what? Some of those guys, I just want to go, grow up. If you watch legislators debate, if you watch lawyers debate, that's real debate. They do not talk about logical fallacies. They are far, far more civil than these YouTube debates. They actually accomplish things. They change laws. They affect public decision. That's real debate. And it is very informal. They do not talk about logical fallacies or, and they'll use emotional arguments and, people will get by on their charisma, and that's acknowledged. It's understood. It's accepted. And, it's very civil too, very formal and civil. So don't confuse debate with truth. If you want to know that something's real or true or not, or how something works, go and study that thing for yourself. Don't watch a couple of guys arguing, calling each other fat, accusing others of using circular logic, and think that it has anything whatsoever to do with you knowing the truth, because it doesn't.